Mahariji, you know, when they talk about him, like when Ram Dass and like, you know, Krishna Das, like, you know, see, like on one hand here, Duncan, you beautifully espouse, describe and demonstrate the power of the heart space, the necessity of the heart space, that it is not esotericism that brings you there. It is not education, not the burned libraries of Alexandria, but simple kindness that you may have known in your grandmother. They're already there. They're already there. These people that I hector and bombard in my angry adolescence, they knew what I have taken a lifetime to understand. But also as part of the narrative of these great mystics is the access of the sublime, the access to the sublime, and that kind of stuff that I guess titillates us, you know, like when they tell those stories that he would go, you know, why were you down by the lake? You know, like they'll tell some mad little story. Like I suppose that, and in that is an indication that there is more than one science. There is more than the measurement and observation of the material world, of the supramolecular, the expressions through material. There are subtler forms of information. There are subtler networks. There are subtler forms of connectivity. What do you make of that, you know, stuff? And do you ever get like turned on by all of that? That's one part of my question. And then the next bit of my question is whether or not you ever want to just go via, you know, like the intermediary, you know, the priest class intermediaries, the ongoing commodification of everything, even the divine, you know, that's one thing. And I like how you describe that, you know, like Krishnamurti said, you know, truth is a pathless land. You got to get there yourself. Can't do this gig. I'm not going to be your prophet because you're all hooked up to the, you can get there yourself. You don't need anybody else. But what about this idea of the, like there's two parts. One, what do you think of like the kind of magic component? And I know you like the miracles because of the title of your show. And what do you think of the idea of you know, getting there via sort of chemicals, getting there via plants? What do you think about that? Or do you think these kind of things are sort of a little baroque and a little fancy, and that we should just focus on the heart stuff?
You know, this is a thing that gets brought up about Ram Dass, is they asked him, I think the question was, what brought you to Maharaji? Like, how did you get to this being that like transformed you? And he said, I trusted the mushroom, because the whole thing started with with psychedelics for him. This was the original illumination, the original, like, holy shit, our maps for the mind are, they might be accurate for a small aspect of human consciousness, but they certainly aren't mapping the entirety of what psychedelics are showing us. So for sure, psychedelics are not just like for Westerners who might have grown up outside of a culture where they're used sacramentally or in some initiatory way. Even they're powerful enough without any of that stuff, without being introduced to the ancestors or being like taken to a space where generations of your family would sit to commune with the departed. And even without that stuff, you can still have reconnection with your heart space, which is a huge relief for people. I mean, it is, to quote Ram Dass some more, death is like taking off a shoe that's too tight. So if you are pinchered off in your head, if like the tourniquet has been wrapped between your head and your heart, then it's like being in clothes that are too tight. Something feels off. You're always homesick, but you don't know what you're even homesick for. You have this aching sense of wanting something. That's where the drug addiction comes in. That's where the alcoholism comes in. That's where the sex addiction comes in. And because you're just trying to go home. It's really quite tragic if you think about it from that perspective. It's really sad. It's like a kid lost in the forest just trying to get home. And it's like, instead of like getting home, he's like getting lost in big piles of ketamine or, whatever your particular drug of choice is. Anyway, the point is, so as far as, so I think psychedelics are a great way to sort of give you the GPS coordinates. Like, look, remember, you're not just your body. Remember, there's a a lot more going on here. You're not just stuck in that body thing. You remember, don't you? You're everything. This is a dream, and and it won't go on forever. And that isn't bad news. And then when you come down from a trip like that, your depression eases, your relationships get better, because that like thing that comes from living in a world where you're lost and defensive, that softens up a little bit. So magic, I mean, my God, if ceremonial magic, it's for sure. I don't practice it. I know people who do, and oh yeah, they certainly. There's, I think, very difficult, very difficult techniques that let you experience unified consciousness. And again, this is all just anecdotal. I don't know for sure about that because I've never had the discipline to do like ceremonial magic. I mean, this is serious shit. You've got to draw. I can't draw a straight line. Like, you got to draw these pentagrams on the floor. And like, if you've ever been to someone's house who does it, it's like, I would have to like, what are you going to call someone at Home Depot to come over and draw an Enochian spirit board on your floor, and then the robes, and you got to make your own dagger. I don't know how to forge. I can't forge iron, whatever you use, not to mention the memorization, not to mention the like all the things Crowley recommended is just the sort of preschool level of magic, you know, like you have to become a master of yoga, of meditation. You've got to read 100 books, learn to read in Latin. And, you know, sorry, but I just don't have I'm not smart enough. I'm not embarrassed to say I'm not smart enough. I am not smart enough to practice ceremonial magic. It's like when I watch Jeopardy and I'm like, oh my God, I am as dumb as I thought I was because I don't know these questions. So yeah, but I do think it must be an access point because I have friends who practice it and who have, you know, demonstrated, you know, a lot of things that it seems to point to the connect, the invisible, whatever they are, mycelial quantum tubules that connect all of us and can be sort of played around with if you want to get into that stuff. So for sure, there's miracles too. The other thing you were talking about is the miracle stories. For sure, there's miracles. And, you know, if you haven't experienced them yet, just find a practice you love, take it up, and you will. It'll go from being like, that's just a bunch of grifters or acid heads or bullshitters talking about this nonsense to, oh, fuck, it's real. It's real. Oh my God, it's real. Holy shit, it's not just a LARP. And then now you've got to deal with that. Now you have to work with that because that's a lot to work with. That's a lot to work with to realize that it's not just nonsense, that in fact, things happen around certain people that are impossible, that can't happen, shouldn't happen, that point to some kind of interconnectedness or a shared mind or, you know, some kind of, I don't know, extra dimension to reality that we just haven't quantified yet. And some people think they want to experience that, but when they experience it, it's a little off-putting.